This video is brought to you by TimeHop. Download TimeHop today to get your fresh daily dose of nostalgia. There's a lot we can learn from the original Fabulous Foursome. Welcome to MsMojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 times the Golden Girls were ahead of their time. Before we begin, we publish new content every day, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. For this list, we're looking at some of those moments from the sitcom that were ahead of the curve on issues that have only really become talking points in recent years. Number 10. When Rose Dealt with Her Addiction. This was a very special episode when it aired in 1989, but today, with the opioid crisis a prevalent health concern, it's a timely reminder that drug dependency can consume anyone. Alarm bells sound when Rose's mood swings take over her easygoing nature, and it doesn't take long for Dorothy and Blanche to trace it back to her dependency on painkillers.
You can't do that, they're mine.
Get rid of them, Blanche.
No! I thought you said you could take these or leave them.
When they confront her, she denies her addiction, but is also reluctant to hand her pills over, coming up with every excuse in the book.
Tonight is the anniversary of the death of my beloved cat, Fluffy.
She's embarrassed to seek help, and even lies to her roommates to keep her meds within reach. Luckily, with friends and confidants like these, we know Rose will be fine.
Dorothy, when you were staying up with me, I felt like I was safe, that I could rely on your strength to get me through it.
Number 9. When they witnessed homelessness and the costs of aging.
Nobody told me that it cost money to get old. I just figured that was one thing you'd get for free.
Forget cheesecake on the lanai. In this episode, the women eat a big ol' slice of humble pie. After chasing a missing $10,000 winning lottery ticket to a homeless shelter, they get more than they bargained for when they end up bunking there for the night. Sophia is surprised to find an old friend who drops a heart-wrenching truth about the costs of aging, a problem that still rings very true today.
The home costs money, the doctors cost money, medicine costs money.
The search for the ticket becomes all the more poignant when even Sophia's optimism fails to bring any comfort to her friend.
You just gotta hang in there till tomorrow.
Sophia, it is tomorrow.
Number 8. When Sophia talked her friend out of suicide.
I can see your tears.
And I can see yours. You know what that tells me?
What?
You're not as ready to die as you think you are. You still want to live, kid.
As the Golden Girls followed a group of retirees living out their golden years in Miami, Florida, the show covered aging from almost every angle imaginable. In another episode that deals with the hardships of getting older, Sophia's friend confesses her fears of aging and her shocking solution to avoid them.
I'm afraid of the pain, of the hurting. I'm afraid of being alone, of dying alone. I can take the pills myself, but I want you to be there and hold my hand.
This revelation doesn't sit well with Sophia's joie de vivre attitude, but she decides to come through for her friend nevertheless. What follows is an impassioned and emotional speech where Sophia pleads with her friend to reconsider.
You wanted me to be here for your death. How about letting me be here for your life?
She successfully saves her friend from suicide and promises to be there for her from now on, proving we could all use a friend like Sophia. Number 7. When Blanche's daughter sought artificial insemination as a single parent. The friends are usually quite progressive in their opinions, but when Blanche's daughter announces her plans to undergo artificial insemination, everyone struggles to hide their disgust.
For God's sake, somebody say something.
Sure, today, when women have plenty of different reproductive options, this reaction seems silly, but in the late 80s, it was a different story. Blanche is angry and stubborn, refusing to support her daughter's decision or to get her head around the idea that she'd willingly enter single parenthood.
Why don't you wait till you get married?
I don't want to get married.
Well, then at least wait until I'm dead.
The others try to convince Blanche to be open-minded and supportive, but it's not until the Southern Belle realizes what she has the potential to lose that she decides to respect her daughter's decision and stand by her.
Oh, I've just been so dumb about this whole thing. Should have respected what you wanted to do.
Number 6. When Dorothy's doctors wouldn't believe she was ill. When The Golden Girls was in production, mental health was less talked about, and doctors tended only to acknowledge illness if it was something they could see. While it's much more common today for these issues to be discussed openly, the 2-part episode Sick and Tired still strikes a chord.
I know Mrs. Warner, your main complaint is you're tired. I get tired too. It's called getting old.
In fact, This storyline is autobiographical for producer Susan Harris, who uses Dorothy to relay her own grueling experience being diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome.
So I really have something real.
I would say you most certainly do.
Dorothy questions her sanity after being dismissed by several doctors, until finally finding one who gives her a diagnosis and some much-needed empathy and understanding. When Dorothy runs into one of her former doctors, she confronts him and does not hold back.
And you dismissed me. You didn't have the answer, and instead of saying, I'm sorry, I don't know what's wrong with you, you made me feel crazy, like I had made it all up. You dismissed me.
Number 5, when Blanche's brother came out. There was still a lot of stigma around homosexuality when this episode was new, which could explain why Blanche's brother Clayton is so reluctant to come out to her. When he finally does, Blanche reacts with shock and denial, sadly proving his fears correct.
I know it can't be true. You're my brother.
It's true, Blanche.
After some reflecting, Blanche realizes that her love for her brother trumps everything, and the pair finds common ground.
You all over at the bar? I just want to say that I would be very proud to have any one of you date my brother.
Blanche could have learned a thing or two from Sophia 2 seasons earlier, when she explains to Dorothy the real strength of a parent's unconditional love. No exceptions.
If one of my kids was gay, I wouldn't love him one bit less. I would wish him all the happiness in the world.
It's because you're the greatest mother in the world.
Number 4, when Dorothy's prized pupil faced deportation.
To him, that feeling was the feeling of living in America.
Lately, barely a day goes by that we don't hear about immigration, but the Golden Girls were tackling the subject way before it hit today's headlines. Dorothy's star student, played by Mario Lopez, writes an essay about living in America, but when it wins a prize, the INS comes looking for the teen, who seems to be in the country illegally.
We have reason to believe that Mario is in this country illegally. Mario, afraid you'll have to come with me.
Understandably, he's frightened, but with Dorothy by his side, he faces the authorities. Sadly, in an end to the storyline that hits a little too close to home these days, the results are heartbreaking both for the audience and for Dorothy, who vows to fight for him.
I have to go tomorrow.
Then I'll do it myself. And we'll get you back here, I promise.
Number 3, when Blanche confronted her sexual harasser. Long before the Me Too movement, women faced sexual harassment. Yeah, even the Golden Girls.
If you really want that degree, you'll use it. You catch my drift?
Oh.
In a storyline that tackles the topic accurately and respectfully, Blanche's teacher offers to pass her in exchange for sex, and the authorities prove to be absolutely useless when she tries to report him.
Why, don't you believe me?
It's not a question of whether or not I believe you. It's just that without substantial evidence, it's just your word against his, and a man's career is at stake.
Well, so is mine, not to mention my dignity.
This wasn't even the last time harassment was addressed on the show. In a later season, Rose stands up for herself and all women when she faces her dentist who tries to take advantage of her while she's in the chair. However, we're focusing on the empowering moment where Blanche confronts her teacher with a speech he'll never forget.
I, sir, am a lady. Maybe not the smartest lady in the world, but I do know that my self-respect is more important than passing your damn course. So you, sir, can kiss my ass.
Number 2, when Rose faced the possibility of having AIDS.
I don't feel like taking it easy. I might have AIDS, and it scares the hell out of me.
You wouldn't think a show about 4 older ladies would need to address the AIDS epidemic, but in 1990, the Golden Girls faced it head on. The episode 72 Hours boldly strode toward this taboo topic by addressing the stigma surrounding HIV and AIDS. Rose receives a letter telling her she may have contracted HIV during a blood transfusion years earlier, which sends her into a frenzy.
HIV? Wait a minute. You're talking about AIDS.
The normally rational Sophia goes overboard to make sure she can't catch the disease from Rose. But the moment that stands out the most in this episode is when Rose spews out so many misconceptions about the disease that Blanche decides to set her straight.
Hell, I'm a goody two-shoes.
AIDS is not a bad person's disease, Rose. It is not God punishing people for their sins.
Before we unveil our number 1 pick, here are some honorable mentions.
I wrote that letter myself. I made up a name and I answered Rose's ad.
You are not the kind of person I want as a friend. Why don't you go to the Mortimer Club by yourself?
I don't understand.
Let me spell it out for you. Go to hell.
I mean, trying to fix it yourself was
cute, but I think you proved your point and it's time to let a man take over.
I'm with Lou.
Oh, get your coat. Lou is leaving.
Number 1. Every time they hooked up. It's an age-old trope that women above a certain age aren't seen as sexual beings, but these 4 friends prove that simply is not true.
However, I have decided to overlook that minor detail and succumb to the Vesuvius of passion that is about to erupt from me.
Throughout the series, all of the women have acting, dating, and sex lives, and they are not afraid to shout it from the rooftops, or in their case, at the pharmacy, when Dorothy, Blanche, and Rose decide to buy some protection for their Valentine's Day cruise.
Condoms, Rose! Condoms, condoms, condoms!
Though they may throw shade sometimes, the ladies refuse to feel ashamed and show everyone that sex is nothing to be embarrassed by, whether you're 18 or 80. Sex positivity for the win.
It is purely physical. Eddie is the greatest lover I have ever had.
This video is brought to you by TimeHop. Download TimeHop today to get your fresh daily dose of nostalgia. Do you agree with our picks? Check out these other great clips from MsMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.